The Roman Empire. How a small city conquered the ancient world thousands of years ago. Long before modern nations existed, a small settlement stood on the banks of the Tiber River in central Italy. At first glance, there was nothing extraordinary about it. Wooden huts covered the nearby hills, farmers worked the surrounding fields, and traders traveled dusty roads carrying salt, grain, and livestock. Few could have imagined that this modest community would one day become the center of one of the greatest civilizations in human history. This was Rome. Over the next 1,000 years, Rome transformed from a tiny village into an empire stretching across 3 continents. At its greatest extent, Roman territory reached from the misty hills of Britain to the deserts of North Africa, from the Atlantic Ocean to the mountains of modern-day Iraq. More than 70 million people lived under Roman rule, speaking different languages, following different religions, and belonging to countless cultures. Yet despite its enormous size, the Roman Empire remained connected by something remarkable: roads, laws, disciplined armies, engineering, and an idea that would outlive the empire itself. But Rome's story did not begin with marble temples or powerful emperors. It began with legends. According to one of the most famous myths in history, 2 infant brothers named Romulus and Remus were abandoned beside the Tiber River. Their uncle, fearing they would one day challenge his rule, ordered them to be left to die. Instead, the river carried the basket safely to shore, where an extraordinary creature discovered them: a she-wolf. The animal protected the helpless children, allowing them to survive until a shepherd named Faustulus found and raised them. As adults, the brothers decided to build a new city, but ambition quickly turned into conflict. During an argument over where the city should stand, Romulus killed his brother and became the first king of Rome. For centuries, many Romans believed every word of this story. Modern archaeology tells a different tale. Excavations on the Palatine Hill have uncovered the remains of huts, dating back to the 8th century BC, showing that small farming communities already existed long before Rome became famous. Historians believe the legend of Romulus and Remus was created later to give Rome a heroic and almost divine origin. While no evidence proves the twins ever existed, the myth became a powerful symbol of Roman identity. Another popular legend claimed that the city's founders were descendants of Aeneas, a Trojan prince who escaped the destruction of Troy after the famous war described in Greek mythology. According to Roman writers, Aeneas crossed the Mediterranean, settled in Italy, and his descendants eventually founded Rome. Whether true or not, this story linked Roman history with the legendary heroes of ancient Greece, giving the young civilization an impressive ancestry. Reality, however, was far more practical. Rome's location was nearly perfect for survival. The Tiber River allowed merchants to transport goods inland while remaining far enough from the sea to avoid frequent pirate attacks. 7 surrounding hills provided natural defensive positions against invading tribes. Fertile volcanic soil supported farming, and nearby forests supplied timber for homes, tools, and ships. These geographical advantages helped Rome grow steadily, while many neighboring settlements disappeared. In its earliest years, Rome was not yet an empire. It was one city among dozens competing for power across the Italian peninsula. Powerful neighbors surrounded it. The mysterious Etruscans dominated northern Italy with advanced engineering and impressive cities. Greek colonies flourished in the south, bringing philosophy, architecture, mathematics, and trade across the Mediterranean. Rather than rejecting foreign influences, the Romans absorbed them. From the Etruscans they learned engineering, urban planning, religious rituals, and techniques for constructing massive buildings. From the Greeks they adopted mythology, art, literature, and many aspects of education. Instead of simply copying these cultures, they reshaped them into something uniquely Roman. This willingness to adapt became one of Rome's greatest strengths. While many civilizations resisted outside ideas, Rome often embraced useful innovations regardless of where they originated. One common myth claims that Roman civilization developed entirely on its own. The evidence suggests otherwise. Rome became powerful because its people constantly learned from both allies and rivals. Borrowing knowledge was never viewed as weakness. It was considered intelligence. As the city expanded, its population grew rapidly. Farmers, craftsmen, merchants, blacksmiths, soldiers, and immigrants filled the crowded streets. Markets became increasingly busy as traders arrived with olive oil from Greece, metals from Spain, fine pottery from southern Italy, and exotic goods from distant lands. Economic success brought new political challenges. Originally, Rome was ruled by kings. Tradition speaks of 7 legendary rulers, who governed the city during its earliest centuries. Some were remembered as wise builders, while others gained reputations for cruelty and arrogance. The final king, Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, known as Tarquin the Proud, became infamous in Roman tradition for ruling through fear instead of cooperation. According to historical accounts, his family's abuse of power eventually pushed Roman citizens beyond their limits. Noble families united against the monarchy, expelled the king, and abolished royal rule forever. In 509 BC, Rome entered an entirely new chapter. Instead of another king, the Romans established a republic. The word republic comes from the Latin phrase res publica, meaning the public affair or the common matter. In theory, government belonged to the people rather than to a single ruler. This idea was revolutionary. Power would now be divided among elected officials whose authority lasted only a limited time. Two consuls shared executive power, each able to block the decisions of the other. The Roman Senate advised leaders on matters of war, diplomacy, finance, and law. Although wealthy aristocrats continued to dominate politics, the republican system made it far more difficult for one individual to become an absolute monarch. At least, that was the intention. As Rome's influence spread across Italy, it faced an endless series of conflicts. Neighboring tribes attacked Roman territory. Rival cities competed for trade routes. Mountain peoples launched raids into fertile farmland. Every victory expanded Roman territory. Every defeat taught valuable military lessons. Unlike many ancient armies that disbanded after individual campaigns, Roman forces became increasingly disciplined and organized. Soldiers trained relentlessly, marched incredible distances, constructed fortified camps every night, and followed strict chains of command. Their greatest weapon was not superior technology, it was discipline. Roman commanders understood that well-trained soldiers fighting together could defeat larger, but poorly organized enemies. Another widespread myth suggests Roman soldiers were nearly invincible. History tells a different story. Roman armies suffered devastating defeats throughout their history. Entire legions were wiped out by enemies ranging from Celtic warriors to Germanic tribes and Eastern kingdoms. What made Rome exceptional was not avoiding failure, it was learning from every disaster and returning stronger. This ability to recover would define Roman history for centuries. The Republic had only begun its remarkable journey. Soon, Rome would challenge mighty rivals across the Mediterranean, encounter legendary generals whose names still echo through history, and begin building an empire unlike anything the ancient world had ever seen. But every great empire starts with a single city, and Rome was only getting started. The republic that refused to fall, the Roman Republic, was unlike anything the ancient Mediterranean had seen before. Instead of placing absolute power in the hands of one ruler, Rome created a government designed to prevent tyranny. Every year, new officials were elected, powerful families competed for influence, and political debates filled the Senate. It was far from a perfect democracy. Wealthy aristocrats controlled much of the government, while ordinary citizens often struggled to make their voices heard. Yet compared to many neighboring kingdoms ruled by kings and dictators, the Roman Republic offered something revolutionary, a system where power could change hands without a civil war. Still, politics alone would never make Rome an empire. Its greatest strength lay somewhere else. Every Roman citizen understood that survival depended on military service. Unlike professional armies that fought only for pay, many early Roman soldiers were farmers. During planting season they worked their fields, but when danger appeared, they picked up shields and spears to defend their homeland. Over time, these temporary militias evolved into one of history's most disciplined fighting forces. A Roman legion became far more than an army. Each legion functioned like a small moving city. Soldiers carried their own equipment, built roads, dug defensive trenches, erected fortified camps every evening, and repaired bridges before continuing their march. Engineers traveled alongside warriors, allowing Roman armies to cross rivers, climb mountains, and besiege heavily defended cities with astonishing efficiency. This remarkable organization shocked many of Rome's enemies. Some tribes believed Roman soldiers possessed supernatural endurance because they could construct an entire fortress in a single night. The truth was even more impressive. Every soldier was trained to perform engineering tasks just as seriously as combat drills. Building defenses was considered as important as fighting itself. One of the first major obstacles standing in Rome's path was the powerful Etruscan civilization. For centuries, the Etruscans had dominated central Italy with advanced cities, impressive temples, and sophisticated craftsmanship. Their influence could still be seen throughout Rome in architecture, engineering, religious ceremonies, and even symbols of political authority. Instead of trying to erase Etruscan culture, the Romans gradually absorbed it. As Roman influence expanded, many Etruscan cities willingly joined the Republic through alliances, while others resisted and were eventually conquered. Their knowledge became part of Roman civilization, strengthening rather than weakening the growing Republic. Further south, however, an even greater challenge awaited. Greek colonies had flourished in southern Italy for generations. Wealthy cities like Tarentum possessed experienced armies, powerful navies, and connections across the Mediterranean. When conflict erupted between Rome and Tarentum, the Greeks called for help from one of the greatest military commanders of the age. His name was Pyrrhus, king of Epirus. Pyrrhus had fought alongside the successors of Alexander the Great, and believed Rome would fall quickly before his experienced army. At first, he appeared to be correct. His forces introduced something the Romans had never encountered before: war elephants, towering above the battlefield. These enormous animals terrified Roman horses and smashed through defensive formations. During the battles of Heraclea and Asculum, Pyrrhus achieved impressive victories. But every victory came at a terrible cost. Thousands of his finest soldiers were killed. After one particularly bloody battle, Pyrrhus reportedly declared, "Another victory like this, and I am undone." His words became immortal. Even today, people use the expression Pyrrhic victory to describe a success that costs so much it almost becomes a defeat. Meanwhile, Rome continued doing what it always did: learning. Roman commanders carefully studied the tactics used against them. They adapted their formations, improved battlefield coordination, and gradually discovered ways to neutralize the terrifying elephants. Eventually, Pyrrhus realized he could not defeat an enemy capable of replacing its losses again and again. He returned to Greece. Rome remained. This conflict revealed something extraordinary about the Republic. Many ancient kingdoms collapsed after losing one or two major battles. Rome refused. Even devastating defeats strengthened its determination. This resilience became one of the defining characteristics of Roman civilization. Another widespread myth claims Roman expansion was driven purely by a desire for conquest. Reality was far more complicated. Roman leaders often argued that they fought defensive wars to protect allies or secure borders. In many cases, however, those defensive campaigns gradually transformed into permanent occupations. Each new province increased Roman wealth. Captured territories supplied grain, iron, silver, timber, and thousands of new recruits. Trade routes expanded across Italy, bringing merchants from distant lands to Roman markets. Road construction accelerated at an astonishing pace. Roman engineers developed highways unlike anything Europe had previously seen. Built from layers of stone, gravel, and carefully compacted earth, many roads remained usable for centuries. One famous saying claims, "All roads lead to Rome." While not literally true, the phrase reflects an important reality. The Roman road network eventually stretched more than 400,000 kilometers, connecting cities, forts, ports, and distant frontiers across the Republic. These roads transformed communication. Messengers could deliver military orders with remarkable speed. Merchants transported goods more efficiently than ever before. Entire legions could march hundreds of kilometers while remaining supplied with food and equipment. Infrastructure became one of Rome's greatest weapons. As Roman territory expanded across Italy, another challenge emerged from within. Not everyone enjoyed equal rights. Society was divided between two major groups. The patricians belonged to wealthy noble families who controlled much of the government. The plebeians, who made up the majority of the population, included farmers, craftsmen, merchants, and soldiers. Warriors, ordinary citizens demanded greater political representation. Sometimes they refused military service. Sometimes they abandoned the city altogether and organized protests. These peaceful acts placed enormous pressure on the Senate. Gradually, reforms followed. Plebeians gained the right to elect their own representatives, known as tribunes, whose job was to protect ordinary citizens from abuses of power. Over time, written laws became publicly available through the famous 12 Tables, reducing the ability of powerful officials to manipulate justice. Although inequality remained, Rome slowly developed a legal tradition that influenced countless future civilizations. Many modern legal systems still reflect principles first introduced during the Roman Republic. One persistent myth suggests slavery formed the foundation of Rome from the very beginning. In reality, early Republican Rome relied mostly on free farmers. Large-scale slavery expanded much later. After overseas conquests flooded Italy with prisoners captured during foreign wars. As the 3rd century BC drew to a close, Rome had achieved something few believed possible. The Republic controlled nearly the entire Italian peninsula. Former rivals had become allies. Roads connected distant cities. Legions stood ready along expanding frontiers. Its economy flourished. Its confidence grew. Yet across the Mediterranean, another civilization watched Rome's rise with increasing concern. It possessed the greatest navy in the Western world. Its merchants controlled enormous trade networks. Its ships carried gold, silver, ivory, spices, and precious goods between Africa, Europe, and the Near East. Its capital was one of the richest cities on earth. Its name was Carthage. Soon, these two rising superpowers would collide in a struggle that would decide the future of the ancient world. And among Carthage's greatest commanders was a man whose name would terrify generations of Romans. Hannibal Barca. Hannibal, the man who brought Rome to its knees by the beginning of the 3rd century BC. Two great powers dominated the western Mediterranean. Rome ruled most of the Italian peninsula with its disciplined legions and rapidly expanding network of allies. Across the sea stood Carthage, a wealthy maritime empire whose influence stretched from North Africa to Spain and beyond. Its harbors overflowed with merchant ships carrying silver, ivory, wine, grain, and exotic goods from distant lands. Neither side wanted to share control of the Mediterranean. Competition for trade routes, colonies, and influence slowly turned into hostility. The spark came from the island of Sicily, positioned between Italy and North Africa. Sicily controlled some of the most valuable sea routes in the ancient world. Whoever ruled the island could dominate trade across the western Mediterranean. When conflict broke out between local cities, both Rome and Carthage became involved. Soon, diplomacy gave way to war. This was the beginning of the First Punic War, a conflict that would last more than 20 years. At first, Rome faced a serious problem. Its soldiers were among the finest on land, but the Republic possessed almost no navy capable of challenging Carthage's experienced sailors. Carthaginian captains had spent generations mastering the sea, while most Romans knew little about naval warfare. According to ancient tradition, fortune unexpectedly favored Rome. A Carthaginian warship ran aground near the Italian coast. Roman engineers carefully examined the vessel, copied its design, and began constructing an entirely new fleet. Whether the story is completely true remains uncertain, but archaeological evidence confirms that Rome rapidly developed one of the largest navies ever assembled in the ancient world. Still, building ships was only half the challenge. Roman crews lacked experience. To overcome this weakness, Roman commanders invented an ingenious device called the corvus, or the raven. This large wooden bridge carried a heavy iron spike underneath. During naval battles, Roman ships would pull alongside enemy vessels, drop the bridge onto the opposing deck, and lock both ships together. Suddenly, a sea battle became something the Romans understood perfectly. An infantry battle. Instead of relying on superior sailing skills, Roman legionaries crossed the bridge and fought hand to hand, where their discipline gave them a decisive advantage. The innovation completely changed the nature of naval warfare. After years of brutal fighting, Carthage was finally forced to negotiate peace. Rome had won its first overseas territory. Sicily became the Republic's first province beyond Italy. But peace would not last. Humiliated by defeat, Carthage sought to rebuild its power elsewhere. Its attention turned toward the rich silver mines and fertile lands of the Iberian Peninsula, modern-day Spain. Among the Carthaginian commanders sent there was a brilliant military leader named Hannibal Barca. He brought with him his young son. That boy was Hannibal. One famous legend claims that before leaving for Spain, Hamilcar placed his son's hand upon an altar and made him swear eternal hatred toward Rome. No one knows whether this ceremony truly happened. Ancient historians recorded the story decades later, and some scholars believe it became a symbolic legend rather than a historical fact. Yet one thing is certain: Hannibal spent his entire life preparing for war against Rome. From childhood, he learned strategy, diplomacy, languages, engineering, and cavalry tactics. Unlike many commanders who relied only on soldiers from their own homeland, Hannibal mastered the art of leading armies made up of many different cultures. His forces included Africans, Iberians, Celts, Numidians, and mercenaries from across the Mediterranean. Each fought differently. Each required different leadership. Hannibal united them into one of history's greatest armies. By 218 BC, tensions between Rome and Carthage exploded once again. The Second Punic War had begun. Most Roman generals expected Hannibal to attack by sea. Instead, he chose a route almost no one believed possible, leaving Spain with tens of thousands of soldiers, thousands of horses, and dozens of war elephants. Hannibal marched north toward the towering Alps. Even today, crossing those mountains is difficult. More than 2,000 years ago, it seemed impossible. The army faced freezing temperatures, narrow mountain paths, rock slides, avalanches, hostile tribes, and constant shortages of food. Many soldiers never reached Italy. Thousands perished during the crossing. Several elephants slipped into deep ravines. Others died from exhaustion and cold. One popular myth claims that every elephant survived the Alps. Historical records clearly show otherwise. By the time Hannibal entered northern Italy, only a handful remained alive. Yet despite these terrible losses, the achievement stunned the ancient world. Rome had expected an invasion by sea. Instead, an enemy army suddenly appeared from the mountains. Panic spread throughout the Republic. Roman commanders hurried north, believing Hannibal's exhausted troops could be defeated easily. They underestimated him. At the Battle of the Tiber River, Hannibal lured Roman forces into freezing water before launching a devastating ambush. Months later, he struck again at Lake Trasimene. Using thick morning fog as cover, his soldiers surrounded the marching Roman army. Thousands of Romans were killed before they even understood what had happened. It became one of the largest ambushes in military history. Fear swept across Italy. Many Roman allies began questioning whether the Republic could survive. Then came the battle that military academies still study today. Cannae. In 216 BC, Rome assembled one of the largest armies it had ever fielded. Nearly 80,000 soldiers marched south, determined to crush Hannibal once and for all. The Carthaginian commander faced an army almost twice the size of his own. Most generals would have retreated. Hannibal did the opposite. He deliberately placed his weakest infantry in the center of his line, while positioning his strongest African veterans on both flanks. As the Romans advanced, Hannibal's center slowly fell back in a controlled retreat. Roman commanders believed victory was within reach. They pushed deeper and deeper into the enemy formation. That was exactly what Hannibal wanted. At the perfect moment, his veteran troops attacked from both sides while his cavalry struck from behind. The Roman army became completely surrounded. There was nowhere to escape. By sunset, tens of thousands of Roman soldiers lay dead. It remains one of the greatest tactical victories in military history. Even today, military officers around the world study Hannibal's double envelopment strategy. Another widespread myth claims that after Cannae, Rome was finished. Many believed the Republic would surrender immediately. Instead, something extraordinary happened. The Senate refused to negotiate. No peace treaty. No surrender. No ransom for captured soldiers. Rome simply began raising new armies. Again, and again, and again. The Republic adopted a strategy proposed by the Roman general Quintus Fabius Maximus. Rather than fighting large battles, Roman forces harassed Hannibal, destroyed supply routes, attacked isolated units, and avoided direct confrontation whenever possible. Many Romans mocked this cautious approach. They called Fabius the delayer. History proved him right. Hannibal remained undefeated on the battlefield for years. Yet he could not replace his experienced soldiers. Rome could. Every campaign slowly weakened Carthage while strengthening Roman determination. The war was no longer decided by brilliant tactics alone. It became a contest of endurance, resources, and political will. Soon, a young Roman commander would carry the war directly into North Africa. His victories would finally force Hannibal to fight the battle he could not avoid. The fate of both civilizations would soon be decided on the plains near the city of Zalma.